I were a kid now, if my parents were raising me now, they would have different rules.
Oh, interesting.
I think.
Yeah.
I don't know why that is, but that's a tangent too.
I love
really, really
so
good at the rabbit trails. So you were reading Goosebumps.
So it made me, but no, I was just mentioning that. So, but in college, once I realized the different perspectives, I started saying, let me read different authors, which at the time, reading different views would have been, I'm going to read Billy Graham and I'm going to read Dr. Tony Evans, which is coming from a little bit of a different. I'd read Max Lucado, and then I'd find someone who was a little bit coming from, not like I wasn't reading, Sam Harris books. I was reading just someone that was a little bit. So I kept expanding my view and my world and my perspective. And I would say, if truth is truth, I'll find it, So when I got in truth, no pun intended, the group truth.
When I found the truth.
I know, right? That's when I started really traveling, not only in the U.S., and we were in different types of churches. And again, that started to expand. I believe we probably didn't go to Episcopal churches, but I think we were in Methodist and Presbyterian, and I started to understand a little bit about mainline Christianity, which I would have had no context for. Right. I'm sure, growing up, Catholics and probably a lot of mainlines were not saved.
Well, Methodists were dangerous because they let women do things.
Oh, right.
And they drank socially.
Oh, they didn't. We weren't even told about them because I had no concept of anybody within a church as a woman being able to do things.
Can you imagine that at a deacon's meeting? Do not tell them about the Methodists.
Right. I'm sure things like that were said. Oh, how naive. But anyway, so I started to be exposed. Again, just kept reading, kept traveling. I would really say authors and travel have opened the dam for me. I mean, really, that's what I can point to. It wasn't just one thing or one person. It was as I continued to travel the world and realized that my theology didn't work when I was in Africa and spouting off things to that audience that I remember specifically. I was, and I've said this many times, but it's a major point in my spiritual journey where we were in Africa with Truth, singing, and we could all get to talk in between songs. One song I'd get to introduce, and I remember shouting the psalmist David says, "I've never seen the righteous forsaken or his children begging for bread," and it hit me wait a second. These righteous, beautiful people are in poverty and dying. We were visiting villages stricken with the Baruli ulcer, which is leprosy-like. So I'm wait a second. I'm shouting something this platitude or this thing that I believe is truth over them, and it doesn't land softly in their heart. How dare I? So then I was okay, wait, if my theology doesn't work here, I don't think my theology works. So what does that mean?
Yeah.
So that was a moment. And then walking out relationships with friends of mine that were gay. And I remember at first not having any space to understand or to affirm them at all. And then slowly just living life with them or alongside them, your heart opens, and slowly thinking, well, I'll love the sinner, not the sin, right? That's where you start, and that is where I started. But then slowly moving into, wait, I don't think
it's a sin.
Anything that they're doing is a sin as far as their sexuality. So that shifted the conversation for me and expanded my spirituality. And then my brother-in-law, this is almost 10 years ago now, my brother-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And he was, my sister and he had been married for 3 years, and they had a 3-year-old son, 3.5 years, probably 3-year-old son. And that, an 8-month process, I was still in Avalon at the time, so I moved on from Truth to Avalon. I remember I was sort of the spiritual leader of our family and our friend group at the time. This was long before I was officially a pastor, but everyone was sort of looking to me, and I was happy to do that and felt comfortable in that role. But I was leading so anytime we'd all be together, they'd ask me to pray. And I remember various moments. There's one moment in my living room that stands out. It was near the end, close to his death, where they were once again asking me to pray, and I'm praying with all my heart that God would step in and intervene and change what this looked like it was heading, and God didn't. So when Jody passed, I remember having to step back and say, at first I was like, well, God's ways are higher, right? And then I'm like, no, bullshit, that doesn't land. Like that doesn't work here.
Yeah.
It doesn't resonate, it doesn't fit. And I don't know if that's just because I'm angry because God took him, quotations, or what it is. But I started having to walk out, how does this fit? So it's not just me in Africa saying a theology that doesn't fit with these people's lives. Now the theology that I've held doesn't work with my life. So what does that mean? So that continued to expand me. And then once I started working at Grace Point, which was in 2009, Stan, the pastor there, he exposed me quickly sort of to a lot of other teachers and authors. And, prior to that, I'd already read a Brian McLaren book, though. There was that.
That's where it started for me.
Oh, that was it didn't, I wouldn't say it started for me. I would say all of a sudden it made me go, oh.
Yeah. All the questions I'd been carrying.
Yes.
He'd been carrying too.
Yes. There's other people that still consider themselves followers of Jesus that carry these same questions, and either have better answers or have started asking better questions.
Yep.
So there was that. And when I read him, that was right after Jody had passed away. And it was so funny. This, a much more conservative Christian producer, I was working on my solo record, and he recommended Brian to me. And I still laugh to this day, Generous Orthodoxy.
Yeah, me too.
I laugh to this day that this man is one who gave it to me, because this man hasn't, as best I can know, really shifted on out of very conservative evangelical spaces. But anyways, he was like, I think you might enjoy this book. I read that book. I also voted for Obama the first time around, which was huge in Nashville. Huge in my circle. I was still in contemporary Christian music, but I was already feeling inclined to all of these social issues and very sort of becoming socially liberal, even though I didn't have a way to be theologically liberal. I still hadn't found a way in that. So Brian opened the door for that for me. Then enter Grace Point and Stan, and exposing me to different leaders and pastors, and church, really the mainline church, becoming very aware of this beautiful, liberal, historical mainline church that I had never been really exposed to and very naive to. And all of a sudden, I just let go. I was happy to let go, honestly, of my conservatism. So many conservatism. Right there we go. Let go of that. Let go of my being evangelical. And it really wasn't about the need. It's not really about labels, but labels help at least differentiate to some extent at times. I was just happy to embrace a way to still consider myself a follower of Jesus without having to hang on to the church and the institutional side of the things I grew up with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment for you as you're doing this deconstruction? Was there ever a moment where you're like, if I follow this path, I might be in trouble?
No. So for whatever reason, and I think it's all just dependent upon your personality or the culture and dynamic in which you grew up. So if I hadn't had that other compartment that we've talked about, I think it would have been that for me. But I was never fearful of that slippery slope, because, again, I've never been fearful. I've trusted that I'm taken care of and saved in heaven. That's how I first started trusting. And then I just started trusting in the bigger, broader nature of whoever God is. And that slowly shifted and continued to expand. But no matter what, I felt that this God, this universe is for us. I've sensed that deeply for a long time. And so because of that, I kept following truth and things that resonated with me. And there was never the slippery slope. There was more of a wide open, let's go on this ride and see what else we can find for the betterment, not only of myself, but for this world in which I live. I wanted to be able, especially being from someone who has a platform, be it within the local church context. I have an artist platform that I've carried with me long since I've been out of Avalon for 9 years now. But I still carry that platform with me. I still have people who follow me, so to speak, online and all these social media. And so I'm constantly just looking for ways in which it can speak to their lives and encourage and comfort and challenge them. But I was not scared anymore. So I know that's different. Like the joke was with Stan and my husband at first, when I was first hired at Grace Point in 2009. It was, she voted for Obama. There's at least that. She's got many gay friends that she loves and affirms. There's at least that. She's still super Baptist. Like, that's only her context. So I think she'll be okay. And then the joke was like, oh, she's run past us. And it's like, come on, y'all. You're taking too long to do really big, important things in the church specifically. So anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I had a similar sense of, oh, this is amazing. Everybody's going to love it.
Yeah, sure.
Everybody doesn't love it.
No.
And I think part of that's, so while there was a sense for me of like, I'm going to be in trouble, there was never a sense of I shouldn't do it.
Right.
There's always a sense of, I'm an Enneagram 7, so I was like, there may be moments that aren't fun.
Right.
If we do this.
Yeah. I wasn't afraid of that, but I found that out really quickly.
Yeah.
As I started stating myself online, in small ways and in big ways, the impact and the way that it shakes people at their core when someone that they've liked or been friends with or looked up to in a sense, especially in the artist world, that artist or the mega church personality, pastor, people put you on a pedestal that you never asked to be on. Some people want to be on that pedestal. I never did. But anyways, that role that I had in people's lives, when I started telling my truth in the sense of I've shifted and I've changed, I mean, it pissed people off.
Yeah.
It still does. Like every once in a while it's gotten way better than it used to. I think all those people unfriended me too, so then they don't have to be mad at me anymore. But I have to restate myself every once in a while online and saying, hey, just so you know, I post all these things because this is who I am. This is where my journey has taken me. This is what I stand for. And so don't be surprised by them. Please engage with me. Let's dialogue and discuss all day long, but don't be surprised by it anymore.
The internet.
Oh.
It's quite the place. So, we're actually recording this on International Women's Day.
Yes.
Right. So, what has it been like for you living in Nashville, being a woman and a pastor? Was that ever a thing people are like, wait, that's a thing you can do?
Yeah. Okay. So Nashville's very diverse, and the circles in which I moved here when I got in Avalon. So back in 2002, that's why I moved here. And so the friend groups and the circles in which I've established myself are those more conservative, traditional, evangelical circles and spaces. So when I shift into becoming a pastor, people either thought, oh, that's cute that she wants to do that, or they didn't respect it at all. In fact, someone from those circles, when I was first named a pastor and I was in the ordination process, they basically said, oh, I'm happy for you. Like, they were trying. I'm happy for you, but I just wonder somewhere what man didn't step up so that now you have to be in that role. And I was like, or I am capable and deserving and need and should be in this role. This is exactly where I need to be, not because some man failed and therefore I get a chance. No.
Oh, my goodness.
So yes, I have had to.
It's one of those things that when I sorted through that. For me, it was my freshman year of college, took an Old Testament class, and the teacher was a female minister, Presbyterian. And she told me things about the Hebrew scriptures that blew my mind, because I'd never really been taught to read them in context.
Right.
But when she came in, I remember thinking, I'm going to pray for her. Because but then she had such passion and she was so talented and I was like, it opened the door. But sometimes I forget that people maybe haven't had those experiences or they have blocked themselves off from them. And so I'm like, it's 2018. Why are we still having to talk about women?
Oh, I know.
Being in leadership.
It's such a tension because there's a huge part of me, again, growing up in the way we've grown up, knowing the changes that I've had to make to move out of those spaces, and knowing and looking with grace towards, again, not only my parents and the leaders and so many of the churches that I was a part of. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And I know that that's true, that there's so many people who literally don't know any better. Okay, that